Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. Sort of. Community video as well. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super chat, PayPal, super like, whatever, Patreon. If you want to, it helps the channel. Today we're going to talk about Street Fighter 5 versus Street Fighter 6, since I've seen people talking about this again, and honestly, I don't even know how to keep my channel active video game wise at this point because I just play so little video games, like I said, and even if I wanted to, my hands are just so messed up at this point. I don't know what I'm going to do video game wise this year, so I guess we'll just talk about stuff that I see the community talking about. Maybe. I don't know. Again, how do I keep the channel active? I'm not sure. But anyway.
Wait, Mom. Wait a second. Time out.
What?
Why the hell are there three of you?
Well, to be honest, I was just too lazy to find the other pictures of the Pikachus.
Jesus, Bob. At least act like you care. Draw a pee-pee or something.
Ain't no draw pee-pee.
That's right, Bob. This is one of your gimmicks. Drawing a pee-pee. That's a beautiful pee-pee, Bob. Now get to the topic.
Anyway, haven't done the Pikachu voice in a while. When I think about Street Fighter 6 versus Street Fighter 5, I've said this before, I'd rather play a game like Street Fighter 5, right? And when I think about these two games, Street Fighter 6, like why is Street Fighter 6 like such a unfun game? Although I guess unfun is subjective, you could say, but a bad game. You know, I've talked about Street Fighter 6. I said one of the problems with the game is going to be that everyone is going to use the system in the same way, right? The system is one of the only new things you can do for a game. And I said for Street Fighter 6, you could see one of the problems is that they're making the characters way too homogenized and every character is going to use the system in the same way. The system is too important, right? And if you think about a system being important to a game, right? Of course, it's not a bad thing for a system to be important to a game. It's one of the only things that can differentiate a game from another. But something to Street Fighter Five's credit is that Street Fighter Five, the characters use the system of the game differently. V skills are unique, right? V triggers are unique. This isn't me saying that the game is amazing or anything like that. And this isn't me saying that there's not maybe potential problems with the game, like some V triggers, V skills, whatever, or, you know, take longer to charge up or have more usages, you could say, whatever, whatever how you want to like phrase it or analyze it, but it's still something that is not homogenized, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas Street Fighter 6 is, you think about the game, the system is homogenized. Everyone uses the system the same way. I said one of the first things I was like, oh God, I'm afraid about this game is right when I saw footages of Street Fighter 6, which again, I accurately predicted, just like all these other games, right? Is, you know, there was footage of, you know, Ryu doing a drive rush Slimer stuff into an overhead and then he could combo after it. And I was instantly, and I posted about it and I talked about it. I'm like, oh God, please tell me that we're not going to see something like Guile doing a drive rush into an overhead and then he can link off of it. And then it was right after that. It was like, oh God, everyone's just going to be using the system the same way. And you see how EX moves work and everyone, oh, this is it's like, oh God. I was like, please. I love that the supers are actually different from, you know, the EX bar, because that's one of the problems with the game or with fighting games in general is that when you have so many versatile usages of a meter, you don't see supers enough, right? Because often the versatile usages of a meter is just better than wasting it all on a super, right? But I'm like, please don't make it that supers are mostly just cannon fodder, like combo fodder. You know what I mean? Just a combo ender. Please don't do that. And guess what? One of the things I was afraid about that they were going to do with that, yes, supers are generally just combo fodder in the game. Very rarely do you see, yes, there's like a Blanca super, yes, there's a Guile super or something like, yes, there's like a JP super or some shit like that, you know what I mean? Whatever the fuck it is, right? But mostly supers are just combo fodder. So they're just a homogenization of the system. They're not actually unique. You don't see them used in a unique way most of the time. One of the only unique ways that you see it used in the system is because of, like, say, well, you don't want to be burned out. So you use your super to not get burned out. That's a, you know, okay, that's kind of a unit thing, but that's that my meter versus your meter. One of the only actual unique things about Street Fighter 6, which again, I was right? You know, but generally, the game, everyone uses the meter the same way, even though that you have characters that you might look at them through a certain lens, right? Like if you were not to know about the system of the game, if you're just to look at the character's tools from a little bit. You might be like, oh, if I'm looking at this through a certain lens, these characters actually look pretty unique. But then you're like, oh, wait, pokes don't miss you anymore in Street Fighter 6, right? Jabs don't, you don't even have to be hitting a guy, right? And everyone just blocks the same or gets hit the same. Like, it's like, what? It's like, oh, so of course we're all going to use the meter the same. We're all going to be drive rushing the same. It's not unique, right? And something else that I've said that Street Fighter 6 is, and you can feel it, is there is a heaviness. It's in a game like Strive as well. And I know this is maybe hard to explain without actually playing these games if you've not actually like moved around compared to old games. Street Fighter 6 has that heaviness. It has that gravitational pull, right? Especially when you think about in a game like, say, Dragon Ball Fighters, Fighter Z has this as well, that all your normals, quotation marks, all your normals, many of your normals move you forward. That ruins the way that footsies feel, right? Not only do you have characters that feel heavier, and even in a game like Street Fighter 6, like say when you hit a DP late, the character, instead of like, say if it was a past game where if you hit a DP late, you would recover before the guy. Look at a game like Street Fighter 6, when you hit characters with like, say a DP late or something like that, a lot of times it feels like the character is starting to fall heavier. There's like this gravitational pull, like characters feel like they're hitting the ground too fast. They're too weighty. When you have your pokes, actually your character is sliding forward all the time. Again, there's that heavy gravitational pull that ruins how spacing feels in Street Fighter 6, right? It's like you're too glued to the opponent. It feels weird. It does not feel good, right? Whereas Street Fighter 5, I've said Street Fighter 5, and this isn't that I love Street Fighter 5, and I've talked about before when Street Fighter 5 was being made compared to a game like Street Fighter 4, say past games, right? I said one thing is I was like, oh man, like, having not proximity normals, I'm like, I was instantly like, oh man. And the way that you poke in the game, and I'm like, this is a game that is made to bring in the 3D audience to Street Fighter, right? I said before, this looks like a game that could have been another version of Tekken vs. Street Fighter, that they were trying to do. The heavy emphasis on frame data in Street Fighter 5, and this is where you can tell that people are really, really retarded and they don't know anything about video games. When they heard me talking about Street Fighter 5, I'm like, there's always been frame data in games, blah, blah. Yes, I know. No one is not saying that. I'm talking about the heavy emphasis on frame data in Street Fighter 5, right? This is your move for counter hitting. This is your move for poking. All jabs have to be this kind of frame. Oh, this is my jab to check you here, right? Oh, God forbid we have a DP, because the DP has to be invincible once you get to so many frames into the move, right? It's just such a heavily pre-planned game, and it feels like a game when you think about, say, a 3D game, right? When you're like tapping, poking the guy, whatever, and you're fishing for that counter hit, which then allows your string to actually be a real combo, right? Whereas in Street Fighter 5, oh, you're fishing for your counter hit move, your medium, whatever it might be. Oh, and then it's a counter move, so then you get your combo after it, right? It's not that it has like no Street Fighter 2 sort of aspects. It's still a Street Fighter game, so to speak, right? I mean, so to speak. But you could see it's like, wow, the way that you poke in the game, the way that you fish for counter hits, right? You could see that it's trying to bring in that 3D audience. And that's not that there wasn't a little bit of this in Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 does have some, some attacks that feel pre-planned, like, oh, this is your move if you're fishing for the counter hit, right? But it had not gotten that pre-planned until Street Fighter 5. And Street Fighter 5, you're like, this is a game that is trying to bridge the gap between a 3D player and a player in Street Fighter, right? But anyway, again, Street Fighter 5 has its problems, but I think at least when you look at the system of Street Fighter 5, you're like, not everyone is using the system in the same way. Not that the system is amazing or some shit like that, but at least there's like uniqueness to that. It doesn't feel like we all are, the same shit, dude. Street Fighter 6, my meter versus your meter, right? That's all it is. Tug of war, right? But when I say my meter versus your meter, right, that's still talking about homogenization of games. So anyway, and then of course that the gravitational pull of a game like Street Fighter 6, the game feels so heavy your pokes all moving you forward. It's weird. It does not feel good to play. That's a little bit subjective, right? But again, you have to at least appreciate that, yes, your characters feel heavy and weighty. It feels like you're glued to the guy. The spacing feels awkward in the game. It feels weird when you're doing attacks and you're not even touching the guy and it hits the guy because of the weird hitboxes and all this kind of stuff. It's just it's a clusterfuck, right? And it's sad what fighting games have become. You know, I don't know. That's my thoughts on Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 6. I've talked about this shit so often, but anyway. Remember if you like the game, or if you like, remember if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.